And it's recently been reported that Camilla is likely to be a bit nervous about the upcoming coronation and that her ex-husband, Andrew Parker Bowles, will also be there.
For decades, the story seemed simple. Andrew Parker Bowles was remembered as the man who quietly stepped aside so King Charles and Camilla could finally be together. But what if that familiar narrative left out crucial pieces of the puzzle? While many of the most dramatic claims surrounding Andrew's silence remain unverified, they've fueled countless debates about what really happened behind palace walls. Today, we're separating documented history from persistent speculation to examine one of the monarchy's most fascinating mysteries. Before we begin, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Crown Secrets, and turn on notifications for more untold royal stories. The man history forgot. For most people, Andrew Parker Bowles is remembered only as the former husband of Queen Camilla, a supporting figure in one of the most talked about royal relationships in modern history. Whenever historians revisit the decades-long romance between King Charles III and Camilla, Andrew's name briefly appears before the focus quickly shifts back to the royal couple. Over time, he became known as the quiet ex-husband who stepped aside and disappeared from the spotlight. That public image created a simple and tidy narrative. A marriage ended, two people moved on, and the future king eventually married the woman he loved. However, over the years, that version of events has been challenged by biographies, documentaries, and countless online discussions suggesting there may have been far more happening behind the scenes. While these theories continue to attract attention, it's important to note that many of the more dramatic claims remain unverified and have never been supported by official evidence. What is beyond dispute is Andrew Parker Bowles' long-standing connection to Britain's military and royal establishment. Born into an aristocratic family, he built a distinguished career in the British Army, serving with the Blues and Royals, and earning respect for his discipline, professionalism, and unwavering sense of duty. His military service placed him within royal circles long before he married Camilla Shand in 1973. At the time, no one could have predicted that their marriage would later become intertwined with one of the monarchy's biggest public scandals. As Charles and Camilla's relationship eventually became public knowledge, Andrew and Camilla's marriage came to an end in the mid-1990s. Officially, the explanation was simple. Their relationship had broken down after years of difficulties. Yet Andrew's response has remained one of the most intriguing aspects of the story. Rather than giving interviews or publishing a tell-all memoir, he stayed remarkably quiet. Some historians believe his military background and commitment to protecting his children influenced that decision. Others have speculated that there were additional pressures behind the scenes, though no credible evidence has confirmed those claims. Whatever the reason, Andrew's silence has only fueled public curiosity. Unlike many figures caught in high-profile scandals, he allowed others to shape the narrative while choosing a life away from sensational headlines. And perhaps that's why his story continues to fascinate royal watchers today. Sometimes the people who say the least leave behind the biggest questions. When private lives became public drama. By the early 1990s, the British royal family was entering one of the most turbulent chapters in its modern history. Prince Charles and Princess Diana's marriage was visibly unraveling, and the world's media followed every development with relentless attention. Every public appearance, every rumor, and every photograph dominated newspaper headlines, placing everyone connected to the royal family under intense scrutiny, including Andrew Parker Bowles. Although Charles's relationship with Camilla had been the subject of private speculation for years, it wasn't until 1994 that the situation exploded into public view. During a televised documentary, Charles admitted he had been faithful to Diana until it became clear that the marriage had irretrievably broken down. The statement sent shockwaves across Britain and confirmed what many had long suspected. For Andrew Parker Bowles, the interview transformed deeply personal matters into an international spectacle. Newspapers dissected every detail of the royal love triangle, while public opinion quickly divided. Some blamed Charles for the collapse of his marriage, while others directed their criticism toward Camilla. Throughout the controversy, however, Andrew remained almost completely silent. Many historians believe Andrew Parker Bowles' remarkable restraint reflected the discipline and sense of duty he developed during his decades-long military career. As a respected British Army officer, he had spent much of his life serving the crown, where composure and discretion were considered essential qualities. Others, however, believe his silence had less to do with military tradition and more to do with protecting his family. At the height of the royal scandals, his children, Tom and Laura Parker Bowles, were growing up under intense public scrutiny. Any attempt by Andrew to publicly challenge Charles or Camilla could have drawn them into an even greater media storm, potentially affecting both their personal lives and future careers. As the media frenzy surrounding Charles, Diana, and Camilla intensified throughout the 1990s, Andrew consistently refused to participate in the spectacle. He declined television interviews, never published a tell-all memoir, and avoided making public accusations against either Charles or Camilla. In an era when many public figures turned personal controversies into lucrative book deals and exclusive interviews, Andrew chose a very different path. His refusal to tell his side of the story only fueled years of speculation. Some commentators have suggested that private understandings or informal agreements may have influenced his silence, but no credible public evidence has ever confirmed those claims. Instead, the historical record shows that Andrew maintained a dignified distance from the controversy, allowing others to shape the public narrative while he remained largely out of the spotlight. Perhaps the most striking example of his approach came in 2005, when he attended the civil wedding of Charles and Camilla. His presence surprised many observers and immediately became a talking point in the media. Some viewed it as a remarkable act of forgiveness and maturity, while others saw it as evidence that he valued family harmony over lingering resentment. Whatever his motivations, Andrew Parker Bowles remained true to the image that had defined him for decades: a respected soldier, a devoted father, and a man who refused to let one of the most publicized heartbreaks in modern royal history define the rest of his life. Duty, loyalty, and an impossible choice. By the mid-1990s, Andrew Parker Bowles' marriage to Camilla had officially ended, but his connection to the royal family was far from over. Unlike many high-profile divorces that lead to years of public accusations, media interviews, and tell-all memoirs, Andrew chose a remarkably different path. He remained almost completely silent, a decision that has become one of the greatest mysteries surrounding his life. Why didn't he write a best-selling memoir? Why didn't he sell exclusive interviews or publicly challenge the stories dominating newspaper headlines? Many historians believe the answer lies in his military background. After decades of serving in the British Army, discipline wasn't simply part of his profession. It was part of his identity. Loyalty to the crown had shaped his entire career, and many observers believe that sense of duty continued even after his marriage collapsed. Others have suggested more personal reasons for his silence. Royal commentators have speculated that Andrew understood any public dispute would inevitably draw his children, Tom and Laura Parker Bowles, into an even greater media storm. At the time, both were beginning to establish their own careers, and another highly publicized conflict between their parents could have overshadowed their futures. With their mother eventually becoming queen consort and their father remaining a respected military officer, they occupied an unusually difficult position within Britain's social and royal circles. For Andrew, maintaining a low profile may have seemed like the best way to preserve some sense of normality for his family. Despite his silence, speculation continued to grow. Some books and commentators have suggested Andrew was quietly encouraged to avoid discussing sensitive matters, while others have proposed informal understandings between members of the royal establishment. However, none of these claims have been confirmed through publicly available evidence. Without official documentation, they remain speculation rather than established history. What is documented is Andrew's remarkable restraint. Even after years of intense public scrutiny, he rarely criticized King Charles and never publicly attacked Camilla. He showed little interest in reopening old wounds, a decision that stood in stark contrast to an era when tabloids increasingly rewarded public figures who turned personal conflicts into lucrative headlines. Perhaps the clearest example of Andrew's approach came in April 2005, when Charles and Camilla finally married after decades of controversy. Their wedding marked the culmination of one of the most debated royal relationships in modern history, and among the guests was Andrew Parker Bowles himself. His attendance immediately made headlines. Some interpreted it as an extraordinary act of grace and maturity, while others saw it as proof that old conflicts had finally been laid to rest. Royal experts generally agree that Andrew and Charles maintained cordial relations despite everything that had happened, reflecting the complex friendships and family ties that often exist within Britain's aristocratic circles. The symbolism of Charles and Camilla's 2005 wedding was impossible to overlook. Among the guests sat Andrew Parker Bowles, the man who had once been known simply as Camilla's husband. As he quietly watched his former wife marry the future king, there were no dramatic confrontations, emotional interviews, or attempts to reclaim the public spotlight. Instead, Andrew once again chose dignity over drama, allowing history to move forward without inserting himself into the narrative. To many observers, his presence reflected remarkable grace, maturity, and emotional resilience. Others saw it as yet another reason to question whether there was more to the story than the public had ever been told. Because Andrew never publicly shared his perspective, curiosity surrounding his life has only continued to grow. His silence has inspired countless biographies, documentaries, podcasts, and discussions, each attempting to understand the man who remained largely absent from one of the biggest royal stories of the modern era. While many theories have emerged over the years, Andrew himself has consistently declined to add to the speculation. As a result, his quiet role in the Charles and Camilla saga remains one of the most intriguing aspects of modern royal history, proving that sometimes the people who say the least leave the most lasting impression. From scandal to the throne. Few public figures have undergone a public transformation as remarkable as Camilla's. During the 1990s, she became one of the most controversial women in Britain as public anger over the collapse of Prince Charles and Princess Diana's marriage intensified. Much of that frustration was directed at Camilla, whose relationship with Charles had become a constant focus of newspaper headlines and television coverage. Opinion polls reflected widespread disapproval, and for many people, it seemed almost unimaginable that she would ever hold a senior position within the monarchy. At the height of the controversy, the idea of Camilla one day becoming queen appeared almost impossible. However, history unfolded very differently. Following Princess Diana's tragic death in 1997, the royal family entered a period of reflection and gradual change. Over the following years, Charles and Camilla began appearing together more frequently at official engagements, and the palace slowly introduced their relationship to the public. Rather than focusing on past controversies, attention shifted toward Camilla's charitable work, including her support for literacy initiatives, domestic violence awareness, and numerous other causes. Public opinion did not change overnight, but it gradually softened. Some historians credit changing generations for this shift, while others believe that a greater understanding of the complexities surrounding Charles and Diana's marriage encouraged a more balanced public perspective. When Charles and Camilla married in 2005, reactions remained mixed, but they were noticeably less hostile than they would have been a decade earlier. As the years passed, Camilla steadily took on more royal duties and became an increasingly familiar figure at official events. By the time Charles ascended the throne in 2022, she officially became Queen Consort, later known simply as Queen Camilla. It was a remarkable journey that few could have predicted during the height of the royal scandals of the 1990s. While Camilla's public role continued to grow, Andrew Parker Bowles chose a very different path. He largely remained outside the spotlight, living a private life, despite occasionally attending royal events because of his military career and long-standing social connections. The contrast between the two has fascinated royal watchers for years. One former spouse eventually became queen, while the other quietly disappeared from public attention. That striking difference has fueled endless speculation online, with some claiming Andrew possesses forgotten royal secrets or private knowledge that could reshape history. Others have imagined hidden diaries, confidential conversations, or undisclosed agreements explaining his decades of silence. Despite these theories, no verified evidence has ever demonstrated that Andrew Parker Bowles possesses explosive information capable of rewriting royal history. While speculation can be fascinating, history depends on credible evidence rather than rumors. Still, the public's continued curiosity says something important about the monarchy itself. Royal institutions have always balanced public ceremony with private discretion, leaving gaps in the historical record that naturally invite questions. People want to know what happened behind closed doors, what conversations were never recorded, and what personal sacrifices were made beyond the headlines. Andrew Parker Bowles has become the center of many of those unanswered questions, not because he frequently speaks, but because he almost never does. His silence has arguably become more influential than any interview or memoir ever could have been. Every public appearance sparks renewed interest, and every passing year without a first-hand account encourages new theories. Yet even without sensational revelations, the documented history remains compelling. It is a story of duty, personal sacrifice, changing public opinion, and remarkable restraint. Perhaps the greatest mystery isn't what Andrew knows, but why people continue searching for hidden answers decades after the events themselves. Sometimes history's most enduring mysteries are created not by what was said, but by everything that was left unsaid. The legacy of a silent witness. Today, Andrew Parker Bowles remains one of the most intriguing figures connected to the modern British monarchy, not because of what he has said, but because of what he has chosen not to say. Now, in his later years, he lives a largely private life, far removed from the intense media attention that once surrounded his family. Unlike many public figures who have written memoirs, participated in documentaries, or given exclusive interviews about their royal connections, Andrew has consistently avoided revisiting one of the most dramatic chapters of his life. His silence has only strengthened the mystery surrounding him. Every few years, a new documentary, biography, or online discussion raises familiar questions. Did Andrew know more than the public ever realized? Were there private conversations that will never be revealed? Did his loyalty to the crown outweigh any desire to defend his own reputation? The truth is that no one outside those directly involved can answer those questions with certainty. Over the years, numerous sensational claims have circulated online. Some suggest Andrew kept private journals documenting his experiences, while others speculate that confidential conversations or hidden documents exist that could dramatically reshape public understanding of the relationship between Charles, Camilla, and Diana. However, despite the persistence of these stories, no verified evidence has emerged to support such extraordinary claims. That distinction is important because history relies on documented facts, credible testimony, and reliable sources, not speculation. Even so, the fascination surrounding Andrew reveals something deeper about the public's relationship with the monarchy. Royal history has always balanced official records with unanswered questions, leaving room for curiosity about what may have happened behind palace doors. Unlike many public figures from his era, Andrew has never attempted to redefine his image. He has never publicly criticized King Charles, condemned Queen Camilla, or portrayed himself as a victim seeking sympathy. Instead, he has maintained a level of discretion that many historians believe reflects the traditions of his generation. As a career military officer, he belonged to a culture that valued discipline, composure, and quiet dignity. Personal hardship was rarely discussed in public, and loyalty was considered an essential virtue. Whether that philosophy ultimately benefited him is impossible to know, but it has undoubtedly shaped how history remembers him. Ironically, had Andrew written a memoir years ago, many of today's theories might never have existed. Instead, the absence of a first-hand account has encouraged endless speculation. Every unexplained decision becomes another mystery, and every quiet appearance at a royal event renews public curiosity. His attendance at family occasions serves as a reminder that, despite years of controversy, life moved forward. Families evolved, relationships changed, and former tensions gradually gave way to coexistence. While that reality may be less dramatic than many online conspiracy theories, it is arguably a more remarkable story, one of resilience, acceptance, and choosing peace over public conflict. Andrew Parker Bowles' story also illustrates the extraordinary pressures faced by those living close to the British monarchy. Every personal decision becomes a subject of public debate. Every relationship is scrutinized, and even silence is interpreted as hidden meaning. Few people experience that level of attention, and even fewer manage to navigate it without bitterness. Whether guided by military discipline, personal conviction, or simply his own character, Andrew appears to have chosen a life defined by restraint, privacy, and loyalty to his principles. As historians continue to study this period, new records and biographies may offer additional insights. But until credible evidence changes the historical record, many of the most sensational claims surrounding Andrew Parker Bowles remain interesting theories rather than established facts. Perhaps that is why he continues to fascinate royal watchers today. He stood closer than almost anyone to one of the greatest royal dramas of the 20th century, yet chose to become one of its quietest participants. His legacy is defined not only by his connection to the king and queen, but by decades of remarkable restraint. And perhaps that's why, after all these years, people remain captivated. Not because every mystery has been solved, but because some stories continue to endure precisely because the people at their center chose to remain silent. Andrew Parker Bowles' story reminds us that history is often far more complex than the headlines suggest. While many sensational theories continue to circulate, separating documented facts from speculation is essential to understanding the real people behind the royal drama. Whether history ultimately views him as a forgotten husband, a loyal soldier, or simply a man who chose privacy over publicity, his place in royal history remains undeniable. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of the monarchy's most intriguing figures, be sure to like this video, subscribe to Crown Secrets, and turn on notifications for more fascinating royal documentaries.